Welcome back to the garage and welcome to my new project. This is a 1979 Honda CB750K. Now, this is my first bike, so this is going to be my first experience rebuilding a bike. Probably a dumb idea to buy a trashed bike for your first bike, but here we are. So what we're going to do with this bike, I do like the Cafe Racer style, but being that I don't really know bikes that much, I think I'm going to work on returning this one to stock first, stock-ish first, and then maybe go from there. Some things we have to do first to address though, as you can see, the whole front of this bike is stripped down. That's because this fork here, that's not a Honda fork. I don't know what it's from. This front tire here is Suzuki. This might be a Suzuki. Again, I don't know. I don't really know bikes that well. So I've got a new fork coming in the mail here. Should be here today, actually. So we'll get that replaced, put that back to stock. What that'll allow us to do is start to put factory things back in place here. You know, things like, you know, horn, all the marker lights and the headlight, the gauge pod we'll be able to put back in here. I got some new things like clutch levers and brake levers and all that. But the idea here is just kind of get this back into stock configuration. I will actually learn how to ride a bike. Maybe, we'll see, I don't know. That's if I even get this thing running in the first place. Here's the other thing. I got this thing for 500 bucks. I don't even know if the engine runs. The guy I bought it from, now none of this is because of the guy I bought it from. The guy I bought it from bought it in this state, and his plan was to do exactly what I'm going to be doing. But you know, he has kids, life got in the way. It sat in the garage for several years. So here's me being a dumbass saying I'm going to get this thing back to normal. Anyways, have fun watching me struggle here. Okay, so as you can see, we've already got body panels, seat, and everything stripped off the frame here. First thing we're going to work on though is pulling this front fork off. Before we do that though, here's kind of what the bike looked like as I bought it and as when I got it. Okay, so pretty much after I just started filming that last segment, the new front fork showed up here. So this is the actual fork that should be on the bike right now. So that will replace this guy. Which means we can also start putting this back to where it's supposed to go. Now with that, I do have new bearings. Let's go on here because you can see these ones are crusty and seized up. So yeah, I'm going to tear this down, clean it up, maybe give it a new coat of paint, and we'll get the old fork torn off the bike. Okay, so I was trying to break down the fork here, and this lower bearing was so seized on, and you can see how bad I gacked it up trying to knock it out of there with a hammer and a screwdriver. I had to get a Dremel out, put a notch in it here, and then take a hammer to the notch to get it to kind of like finally come free from here. But now that this is completely broken down, again, like I said, I'm going to clean this piece up. I got a few of the other pieces over here. I'm just going to clean them down, maybe spray a new coat of paint on them just so that they're nice and fresh and protected. Get the fork reassembled, and then it's time to start tearing that down. Okay, so I have the parts for the new fork over there hanging, drying right now. They're all painted up, looking nice and pretty. So I think to get this fork drop, it actually looks pretty simple. I think I just need to undo a couple Allen head bolts here to pull the fork tubes out of this piece here. And then it looks like maybe one bolt here to pull the whole assembly apart. Yeah, anyways, let's see if I can figure this out. Alright, there we go. Front assembly is removed there. I need to work on rebalancing the bike on the jack stand really quick, but that's ready to get the new front fork on. So once these parts get dried, we'll get the new front fork reassembled, and then we'll see you back over here. Okay, so I'm starting to rebuild the tree here, or the fork, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, got new bearings for it, which also means new races. Now normally you could just pop these suckers out from wherever they're at and put the new ones in fairly easily. However, the ones that were in here were so, and you can see the kind of pitting surface rust on this one, they wouldn't come out. So I actually had to get in there with a Dremel and a grind and like a flappy or a death wheel on both sides and chew these up pretty bad just to get them out. Now that did cause a little bit of scoring here on this surface. Honestly, that really shouldn't be that big of an issue though. I did come in and clean these up with some sandpaper. Honestly though, like being in here and this really being the surface that the race meets to and not necessarily the bearing itself, I shouldn't really cause any issues. But yeah, so that sucked. But now that we got these out, we can actually get the new races installed and then finish putting this back together, which means we can then put the forks back on and all of this can go back on the bike. And then the front end of the bike will be, well, partially reassembled anyways. Alright, so I'm gonna get the new races installed here. We have our race and bearing seal install thingamajig here, so yeah, let's get to it. Alright, races are installed. Now to start putting the fork back together. Okay, so now one of the things I found interesting with the installation for the bearings here for the steering is that unlike bearings I'm used to on a vehicle, you don't actually pack these, at least according to the all bearings or all balls install video. They say you're supposed to do is take a little bit of grease, apply it to the dust shield, like such. And then take the bearing and again just apply a generous amount to the outside face of the bearing. And then also apply some to the inside of the bearing here where it's going to fit onto the fork here. That's it. That was really strange to me that you don't actually pack these things, that you and that's how the dust shield goes on there. But yeah, that was really weird to me that you don't actually pack these bearings, you just kind of apply a coat of grease on here. Okay, so in lieu of having an actual bearing installation tool, what I do have here is an old bearing. So what I'm going to do is slide this down on top here. Then I'm going to take a metal pipe, and then we're going to Okay, so you've noticed the change in pitch there. It means that we should be fully seated. Go ahead and be on the safe side and throw a little bit more grease on here now that we have the bearing on. Okay, and so that's the lower bearing installation. Next from here, we'll actually need to move over to the bike to get the upper bearing installed and then kind of start putting this all back together. So let's move over to the bike. Okay, so we've got the upper bearing here, similar to the lower bearing, pre-lubed. Just again, wipe some grease on there, and we've got the new dust shield on it as well, already pre-greased. So we should just drop that into the race there. Grab our fork thingamajig here, slide up through, and you got the adjustment nut here. I would say screw this on, but my hands are so covered in grease I can't. There we go. All right, there we go. So we'll get that tightened down to spec here in a little bit, but that's the first main piece of the original fork back onto the bike now. So let me look up the torque specs on this really quick, and then we'll get that cranked down and we'll move on to the next phase of this. Tightness on, or the torque on this. Honestly, so the way I just did it, or the way it was recommended to do it, is make sure that there's free play on this. Not so loose that it jiggles, and not so tight that it binds either. And so it feels like we're kind of right there. So this is the top of the triple tree fork, whatever the hell you want to call it. I need to put the nut on here to hold it all in place. I'm not going to torque it down just yet though, because I still have to get the forks installed here. all that jazz, and I need that in before I can torque it down. So we have the washer and the nut. Alright, so that's just kind of hand tight down. Having these freshly painted pieces on here is making me realize how crusty this frame is. The frame's in solid shape, it's just, I mean, it's 40 years old, so it has seen better days. Alright, so basically at this point, what I need to do, first I need to put the bolts back into here for this. These bolts are what help clamp down on the front forks. Okay, I had to hit reset for a second. There's these little brackets here. They're supposed to go on the front of the head there. Little just cable brackets. I'm gonna start putting the forks back in. Now with the forks, I put this tape on here just to remind me where they were on the lower triple tree, whatever the hell this thing's called. So yeah, let's get this reinstalled. Alright, so that's the fork reinstalled there. I haven't torqued any of this down because I wanted to get it in first and kind of in place, and then once we're kind of sure that everything's where it's supposed to be at, then we'll go through and tighten everything down. So yeah, anyways, that's going to do it for today. When we come back, we'll start working on reassembling some of this stuff here. I'm waiting on a few things though. I still got to get like the bucket for the headlight here. We've got a new handlebar setup coming in. So yeah, once we get that in, we'll start throwing this all back together. See you next time. Okay, so I screwed up again. We're not quite done yet. So like how I forgot to put these brackets on, there's these brackets here for the turn signals, and I was supposed to mount them here on the front fork. So yeah, we're gonna fix that really quick. Okay, there we go. I got the turn signal brackets on there. Yeah, so I think once we get those extra parts in, we're ready to start assembling the front end.